So if you're constantly changing, it's off track, it's unscientific, and you're using, how you're feeling that day. You're using your own judgment in the moment, what you've sensed, as you've played piano, doing your palpation. It's just breaking rules of engagement, science, and business. Hey, and welcome to this week's version of the Christ-Centered Chiropractic webinar. There is really something that I'm seeing a pattern as I work with not just chiropractors. I consult for some other types of organizations. A lot of people just bring me their problems, their business problems, and we'll spend some time consulting. And I like it. I like trying to figure out these challenges. That's something my wife likes to send people to me for. She always says that nobody could help you work out of a business problem or a crisis like my husband. And so it's something that I think I've picked up. One, just I've been in a lot of crises myself, always trying to advance in business. Plus, of course, I'm actually writing my thesis for my PhD in business. So a lot of the times our professors throw us these business challenges, and we have to spend time and do the research and write the papers on it as we figure it out. So there's a pathway to success specific to chiropractic that's similar to like orthodontics or either other versions of medicine or wellness, where if you break these rules or principles, you're just going to lose. And so there are rules. I know there's a lot of different coaches and consultants out there, and we all have different opinions, but there are certain rules that can't be broken. And so I want to walk through 3 of these rules on this training today, as well as the fact that some of the insights and intricacies of pulling it off. So rule number 1, there has to be a very specific plan that people are being put on. So as an example, when I wanted orthodontics as an adult, I'm just investigating, how do you pick who the best one is? So I found out that there's actually a company that trains other orthodontists, and it's an actual orthodontic office. They're like a coach, kind of like me for chiropractors. They're that for orthodontists. So when I went to their clinic, what I found out was that they have a plan A, and your options are plan A, and you pay for it either in 1 payment for 6% off or in 5 payments. So 1 plan, 2 forms of payments, or doorway, or there's the exit. That's how that works. And they teach this to other orthodontists. So I sat down, I spoke to the main doc. He was willing to spend some time with me since we're kind of in the same field as trainers of doctors. I said, why? Why is it set up that way? And that's really how my clinics were set up also. But why is it that you do it that way? I was not familiar with seeing it outside of chiropractic. And he used the word self-esteem. So, kind of threw me off. That's not what I was expecting as the word you'd use. Really, I guess 2 words for why this is your approach. So he explained it to me. He said, when you walked in, what was your impression of the staff? And they were, self-esteem, cocky. They were definitely confident, certain, they had this look to them like we're settled. When you come to see us, this is easy for us. We have plan A for your care, and we have 2 choices for payments. Is yes or no. They're very calm and certain, confident, again, almost cocky, almost like it was a privilege to be getting care in their office. And you would have thought that the front desk person and the one who went over the finances with you, you'd have thought they were doctors, because they, again, had somewhat of an arrogance about them, because this is just how it works. And he said, yeah, that's from what we call self-esteem training. So when they put together, again, step 1, this plan A or plan A, that's self-esteem building. That creates a staff that feels confident in what is going on in the clinic. versus so many people that I've worked with, whether again, in or out of chiropractic, where there's really no plan. So if 10 people come in, there could be 10 plans. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G plans. And you're flexible if the person's resistant, if you feel like they don't have any money, they want something different than what you offer, if they've got different types of insurances, we got a plan for everybody that we're winging. So when you go to that front desk, because I also have my master's in psychology, they don't have self-esteem. So self-esteem is your confidence, your belief in yourself. You go to that front desk and there's a lack of confidence. If that patient raises an issue or has a concern or they object to anything, that staff crumbles like a stack of cards because there's no self-esteem. They've got nothing to anchor to because they have no idea where this is going based on the fact that, again, there's dozens of options. And so it really ruins an office and it ruins any business. I mean, it's a rule of business. It will wreck any business. One other quick story. I had this bank that we were running all of our money through years ago. And so millions of dollars are flowing through this bank every month. And so I was used to being treated special by management. Is what, if you don't know that, if you're putting a lot of money through a bank, you're sort of in a different class and they treat you differently. You've got your own reps. But I needed a quick money order. So for the first time ever at this bank, I walked just up to the teller. And teller doesn't know me from Adam. I just walked in and said, hey, I need a money order for $100. She says, okay, well, that's a $15 charge. And I'm like, $15? That's 15% of the money order. And I run millions of dollars through here. But I realized, because she had this confidence about her, this certainty that there's nothing I could do. Like, that's the rule. She's just following the rule. That's what they cost. It'd be no different than trying to break rules on an airplane. TSA will come and carry you out in cuffs if you try to break a rule. It's what they do. So I never liked the arrogance of the stewardess. I'm on an airplane, or the stewards. And I didn't necessarily like the arrogance of this person that was the teller at the bank, but you realize that they have self-esteem. This is the rules. These are the rules. This is how it works. And there's no way around that. And so you want to create that sort of confidence in your team, confidence, self-esteem in yourself, and the patient will see that this is the way it works, and there must be a reason why. Cognitive dissonance kicks in, and they just justify why this is the process in your favor by having a plan. Again, can't just point out enough, go deep enough on just this one webinar why step one, there's got to be a plan. That's the first thing. Step two has to do with the fact that now let's talk finances. So as I mentioned, even at this orthodontist office, there's 6% off for a prepay, or there was one type of way to pay it off. You need to have the same thing. This is how the economics work. Once again, as you build this worth for what you do, this value for what you do, that changes the self-esteem inherently for you as the provider, as well as for your team. We all get greater self-esteem because we know this is the worth, this is the value, and that's what we charge. That's it, and this is how we collect the payments. There's not 27 different options. That'll lead us to step three, which is that you have to be good at building the value, creating the worth, and communicating it. So that's certainly part of all of this, but you've got to commit today that this is the plan. This is how it's paid for, and we have value. We're committed to that way of paying for it. Going back to that orthodontist place again, I was kind of surprised, like 6%, like prepays, we're used to 10%. Some doctors do 15%. I've even seen 20% for a prepay. You're just giving me 6%. I didn't challenge it because I could see on her face, that's the rule. This place seems incredibly inflexible. And they're the leading orthodontic clinic in the country, training others. I drove 45 minutes to get there, past 87 other orthodontic clinics, to probably pay more, deal with a more rigid staff, not get near the break I would have liked, because I always prepay anything if I can get some sort of discount. So I didn't get near the break I would have liked to have seen, but that's where I decided to go to get my teeth straightened out because they clearly knew what they were doing. They were confident and committed to it. So this is a real upgrade to most chiropractic clinics or, again, businesses in general. So we've got a plan. This is the way we pay for it. And that's what we stick to. And I can't even go into it enough again, where if you have all kinds of different deals and payment plans, how much that messes up your staff at the front. I deal with a lot of people's staff, and the complaints about the doctor being stuck in the room with patients, all wheeling and dealing on all the plans, the fact that there's no rhyme or reason to how we might work with one patient versus another, just so destructive to the staff. And then the doctor's upset with their staff or doesn't like their level of inspiration and commitment. It's like, well, it's all screwed up here. Nobody would like to work here. This is just, you've made it really hard. And, doesn't mean the doctor's not a good guy and that they're not doing it, or a good girl, and they're not doing this out of love and compassion, but it messes up the business. Kind of along those lines, before I get into, how we sell it, so to speak, how do we communicate and close it? When we talk about these plans, there's also the part of it where how you take care of the patient. So I've gone through certifications. I've done 8 certifications with Harrison, with Don, with Daddy Harrison. I've been through some Indeed stuff as well, but I went through it with Don. I'm certified in Pettibon with Burl, so close friend with Burl when he was alive. And I've been trained by Dennis Wogan. I went through all 6 levels of their certification back when they had that with Clear. So I went through all of that, and all of their techniques are based on research. And this research really helped because it beat out of me a lot of what was in my head regarding what treatment looks like for a patient, what adjustments look like over any sort of 30, 60, 90-day, 12-month period of time. Because if you really follow the research, you take the x-ray, you do your assessment, and now you've got a protocol of care. There's certain vectors to your adjustments that you've established based on their x-rays and your findings. There's certain exercises that are involved in rehab. There's home care. It's very specific to the case. And so when you start the case, it's rigid. Back to this idea of self-esteem. Self-esteem comes from a confidence, a rigidity, like this is how we do it. So when you come in and I've done the assessments, like this is your plan, based on research, just endless experience I've had with patients just like you, and x-rays like this, and people with your background and your level of pain and injury. This is the plan. So when they come in for anywhere from a minimum of 6, but usually 12 visits, I'm following a very specific protocol. So it's these 3 adjustments. It's this with the arthrostim. It's this particular line of correction with the arthrostim, and it's rehab in the office and your home care. And that's what we're going to do for 6 to 12 visits before we reassess this and determine if that course of care has achieved the goals, or we need to modify, or as I say, adjust the adjustments. If we need to make any adjustments to the plan as we go into the next part of what I gave you, is that initial plan that we've been talking about all along, where for a lot of you, that's also changing. So somebody comes in, we're playing the piano, we're doing the whole up and down assessment of their spine. We're doing all the palpation, 27 leg checks, 2 or 3 posture checks, asking how they're feeling. And every visit is different. And when I say that was beat out of me, I was like that too initially, just coming out of school my first year or two. But when you look at the actual research, we've for years now been able to look at an x-ray, adjust the person, and then either look at that on digital motion x-ray or re-x-ray to see how often does a pattern or a subluxation, set of subluxations, how often do those change or modify? And they don't visit by visit by visit. It's going to take 6, 12 visits before you really see changes in subluxation patterns, postural patterns, muscular patterns, or any difference on an x-ray in terms of the actual visual subluxation that you're seeing on films. You're not getting that visit by visit by visit. You're not seeing change. A lot of what I do for my spine, my own spinal work and my own muscle work and the adjustments I get, it's the same for 20 years. I went through correcting those patterns, but those patterns tend to come back. I went from correcting certain subluxations. Those same types of subluxations tend to come back. So it's similar adjustments, similar rehab protocols for 20 years, because that's how spines are. So if you're constantly changing, it's off track, it's unscientific, and you're using, how you're feeling that day. You're using your own judgment in the moment, what you've sensed, as you've played piano, doing your palpation. It's just breaking rules of engagement, science, and business, doing it that way. So we've got to have not just a set plan we put in place with the patient, but a set protocol for care that does not change very often. When it's 6, it's because maybe I'm not making the progress I thought I would be making. So I'm going to stand them up. I'm going to reassess their posture. We're going to maybe take another look at the x-rays, and we may make adjustments to the adjustments at the 6th visit, but usually it's at the re-exam, which is a good time in the process, according to the rules of good quality business, as well as proper patient care and science, to make an adjustment to the adjustments and possibly other things in their rehab or stretching and exercise at the 12th visit. So critical that this plan is relatively rigid, which again builds your confidence, patient confidence in you, and gives the staff self-esteem. Finally, it's of course how you communicate it also. So this has to be communicated with value. So I'll just point out, for example, when it comes to helping people understand why these protocols are so critical and why we have plan A, or alternatively, plan A. We have one way to do it, just like that great orthodontist. This is how we fix your teeth. If you want to go from crooked teeth to a beautiful smile in 12 months, this is the plan. If you want to break the plan, they don't say there's the door, but there's the door. Like that's how we do it, and that's how we do it. So same thing with spinal correction. This is how we do it, and this is why. So as we communicate it, I always show someone's x-rays that came in from another doctor. So my favorite one I show is this, because we have a lot of HMOs here, and I got off of all of them many years ago because they don't pay and they disrupt good quality care. But it's tough because people pull out the list. I'm not on it. So I get people through referral, and I explain that through this one example. So this lady comes in and her neck is completely straight, which you would expect. She's in her 30s. She's now seeing degeneration at C5, C6, C7, and she's a disaster. She's on 8 medications. She's had carpal tunnel surgery in one wrist, is scheduled for carpal tunnel on the other wrist, digestive stuff, migraine headaches, misses a lot of work. She's a disaster, but she's been seeing another chiropractor for 8 years. And it's one on the list, and one that I know. I actually went and got adjusted by this chiropractor one time, and I saw what she did with her patients and what she did with me. And so you literally walk in the clinic as a HMO patient there. You lay on the table, and she walks in, doesn't even say hello, just walks in. Next, her hands are on your spine, and she's cracking your back. And so I tell the patients who are in the report, so this is 8 years of care. So after 8 years of care, using the HMO doctor, just getting her spine manipulated, it's not getting adjusted, it's just manipulation. This is what it looks like. It's worse than ever. Her health is worse than ever. 8 medications, 1 surgery, on the way to another surgery, missing work. We did the math, and it was $75,000 in co-payments, whether it was with the chiropractor over 8 years, or whether it was with the surgeons or the medical doctors. But she could not even begin to estimate the cost of all that work she missed, and what's the value or the cost of the fact that her life has been miserable. So what I'm doing there is, if you're going to sell a financial plan, it's important that there's a financial reference. So if you just say to somebody, my plan is $3,000 without reference, that's simply a cost. Like, it's just this expensive. I mean, 3,000 is a lot of money for most people, especially when they figured they had insurance and it was covered. It would be like free. So you're saying you had to come out of pocket $3,000. I've got to have a reference point. So what they're learning from me is that for a $3,200 24 visit plan, my goal is to save you the tens and tens of thousands of dollars, like this lady spent on her health and got nothing out of it. She was sicker than ever. And so then I point out that there's plan A, or plan A to go from this x-ray. Then I show this woman's 60-day x-ray where the spine's been completely corrected. I said, so there's no plan B to going from a degenerating cervical spine that cost her well north of $100,000 out of pocket, whether it's from the health issues or missed work. There's no way to go from that to corrected without the process and the plan we have, which is our rehab, this number of visits, this number of exams and re-x-rays. No other way to get there. This is the plan. This is the cost. And you can pay for it in one of two ways, prepay or our payment plan. That's it. And so they see that the alternative is what they saw from the HMO doctor, this disaster, or me, and following this plan. And obviously my plan at $3,200 is a fraction of going the covered route with this other person. So I showed the value. So when we talk about communicating it well, it's important they see the value. That $3,200 is clearly an investment that's going to literally has an ROI of roughly 30 to 40 times. Plus you're well. And I asked them, now that her x-ray looks like this, I asked the people sitting there, now how many medications out of the 8 do you think she's on? And they always say 0. I'm like, that's right, it's 0. Now how many migraine headaches a week? She was getting roughly 7. Now how many? 0. Yep, you're right. How much work does she miss now? Yeah, 0. Do you think she had the other carpal tunnel surgery for which had a $5,000 copayment associated with it? Do you think she spent the $5,000? No, you're right. She didn't have it. She's perfectly fine. How do you think her life is now compared to the way it was seeing the HMO doctor all those years? Yeah, radically better life, completely transformed. So take this with you. Go out and build your self-esteem. Transform not only patient lives, but your business, make life better for your staff. Go out and save the world. Bless you. And remember who you are.